You alluded to this with Ty Simpson, so I know you probably didn't anticipate getting out of this podcast without talking about Alabama and their quarterback competition. But what's your perception of what's going on there, and what do you anticipate, coming out of that?
It's still so early, and I think this group and the staff is a little less likely to show their hand because there's only 3 quarterbacks on scholarship. I think in the event in which you accelerate this competition too far down the line, you run the risk of losing one. And now you have 2 quarterbacks under scholarship, and you have to go to the portal and find someone. You're probably not going to want anyone in May. It's just, I think that they're having to be very diligent with how they're spreading reps, how they're creating competition amongst all 3 guys, keeping all 3 involved. But I am still of the belief that it's Ty Simpson is the guy to beat. Now, will he beat him? Will other guys elevate and beat him? Perhaps. Ty Simpson, I think if you were to ask me 2 years ago, I would have said he was the guy to beat because that was coming from the staff. Like this guy, as a redshirt freshman, the staff all believed that his skill set would have potentially put them in position to, if he played his best, to go and be at their best offensively. He didn't play his best. Didn't have a great spring. Summer was okay. Fall was okay, and then it got good late. But at that point, Jalen Milroe had already taken control of the quarterback competition. So that was 2 years ago. Now Ty's a more mature player. He's a more confident player. I think he has a better understanding of what this group wants to be. And I think this coaching staff and the way they handle the quarterback situation will probably be more advantageous for Ty in creating that charisma that you need to be good at the quarterback spot in college. Like, you got to believe you can do anything as a quarterback. You really do. You have to have nonstop confidence. I think, look, Coach Saban's great, and the previous staff's great, but they were a little more, hey, don't make a mistake, things like that. As opposed to, hey, you can do it. I don't care if you throw 4 picks, you can do it. You know what I mean? Like, this staff feels a little bit more glass half full with how they communicate with the quarterback spot. So we'll see where it goes. It's not to say that Keelon or Austin can't close that gap. They're younger. They have really high ceilings. I think the staff knows that in time, that's going to be a fascinating competition to watch, whether it's for the backup job this year, potentially for the starting job, assuming a big jump from both those guys, or in the starting job next year in the event in which Ty is around for 1 or 2, however it all shakes out. But I think it's going to be really interesting. I still would be surprised if it wasn't Ty at the beginning of the year for the Tide.
You've held that job, Greg, so you understand better than anybody what it is to be the quarterback at Alabama. What's that like? Like, when John Parker Wilson finishes up and you're going into spring practice 2009, what is that like when you are competing for the starting job, when you're the guy who's expected to win it?
For me, it was like, finally, you know what I mean? I'd waited for a while and was finally ready, because when I got on campus, John Parker was already the starter. So never really had much of an opportunity to compete, really just competed in, for a backup job for a couple of years, which is great. Hey, any competition's good. And I've loved John Parker and support John Parker, and knew my role on the team. And I just put my head down and just wanted to be better. And like, when I got that chance and when that job opened up, I wanted to be ready to seize it. And my competition was unique. In the sense that it wasn't really a competition. I remember week 1 spring practice, day 1 spring practice, I got every single number 1 rep. Then I had a really good practice. And at that point I was like, I got this. Like, I felt good about it. You know what I mean? I was competing with a couple of guys that one was a big recruit named Star Jackson. And then there were a couple others that were in the mix. AJ McCarron got there that summer. So he was kind of late to the party, but there was another kid named Thomas Dara who was really talented, walk on. But I think at that point, maybe he had a scholarship. I don't remember exactly what the lineage was, but I never shared a rep. I mean, literally for all of spring, all summer, all fall camp, never shared a rep. So it was kind of, I got put on third base to start camp, and I just had to score to secure the starting job. The other guys were starting at home plate, and they had to go all the way around. So I just had such a big lead. It's just not like the competitions that are going on now, because now in the event in which you give a guy a big lead like that, the rest of the guys are out the door. So
Right.
it's just different now with how they structure the reps and how they try to keep everybody happy.
We'll be back with more from Greg McElroy, but first I got to tell you about Rhoback. Yes, I'm wearing my performance hoodie, one of my favorite garments because it goes everywhere and with everything. I have this in about 7 different colors. My daughter has stolen 3 of them. I have managed to claw back 1 or 2 every once in a while. I've also got the Huddle hoodie. If you have not experienced that, it is like wearing the most comfortable bedding you own. It really, I think it's the most comfortable piece of clothing I have ever owned in my life. But you've also got polos, shorts, joggers, the buttery soft feeling joggers, outstanding from Rhoback. And of course, quarter zips, more performance hoodies. You got to order multiples of these. Great deal at Rhoback right now. 20% off your first order if you use the code Andy. So code Andy, 20% off your first order, RHOBACK.com, Rhoback.com, RHOBACK. Use the code Andy for 20% off your first order. Now back to Greg McElroy.
That's interesting thought process because I wonder what base Ty Simpson's on. But that wasn't going to be my question. It's just an interesting thought exercise.
I think based just on experience, and he's got a lot of skill, man. Like, he's a very talented kid. If he's ripping it and he knows where he wants to go with it, and he's decisive and he's confident, like, he can go and he can run too. I think that's a thing that I didn't know he had until last year. I didn't know he was as mobile as he showed last year. So I think he's probably, if we're using the baseball analogy, I would say he's probably at second. I think Austin Mack probably at first, and Keelan's probably at home just because he just got there. And so many people have said, well, we want Keelan. I totally get that mindset. I just don't know how often true freshmen are able to go in. If you want to reset the expectation level for Alabama and say, hey, the goal is to make the playoff, then okay, you can run a freshman out there. We've seen that happen before. But if the goal is to win the national championship, I think it's really hard to do with the true freshman. It's happened twice ever. 1985, in an era in which it was pure runaround. I know in 2016, Jalen Hurts got them close, but he was runaround, right? He wasn't having to drop back and drop things into holes. He was mainly using his athleticism. And if you look at the roster that surrounded Jalen Hurts in 16, it was insane. Not quite the same as the roster that will surround Keelan at the event in which he was the starter this year. And then you look at Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence in 2018 was a unique situation. Took him 4 games to get that starting job. And he was amazing. But if you look at his supporting cast, it was outrageous. Just not just on offense, but on defense as well. So Keelan will have his chance. And he might be a gamer, but I would be surprised, knowing the intricacies of this offense and the expectation level of the quarterback position. I'd be surprised if that 2-year gap of having gone through the installs 3 times now, if you're Ty Simpson, 5 times now, if you're Austin Mack, I would be surprised if that gap can be made up in 15 practices in which they're all kind of controlled to begin with.
Yeah, I guess we have it here, Andy. Greg McElroy and Ryan Day, both born on third base.
100%. Yeah.
No
doubt.
You're both in a very great position right now because it may have taken a while for him to get off third base, but Ryan Day did the old run up, jump, and stomp on home plate. So he's there.
I'd much rather see Ryan Day than me. I can promise you. I don't care how much heat he gets for losing to Michigan. I would trade places with Ryan Day right now, for sure.